friendship for me is almost the core of my feeling of aliveness. But a happy life circles around. Because what does it do? It wants to go to old patterns.
Yeah.
Because it takes less energy. And whatever takes less energy,
okay.
I'm less afraid of.
That's good.
It's supposedly 1.3 billion people all over the planet have seen it. And what
It's
was
impressive.
well researched is it changed their view in their relation as humans in relation to this planet, nature.
So this is my English teaching from Stefan Beiten. It's very exclusive. It's about my pronunciation of certain words. So this is, what is my mistake is always I say criteria, and the right one is criteria. Yes? Ah, okay, fantastic. The second one, analysis, and the right one is analysis.
That's the wrong one.
Oh, the right one is, analysis, the right one. Yeah, it's true. Okay. And I always say analysis, true. And strategy, but strategic. Strategic. I still do it wrong. I'm a bad pupil. So thank you so much. And during our conversation, please help me. But I always say that this is the podcast with the real German accent. The only one with the real German accent. The real German accent. Although I was in school when I was in kindergarten and in foundation school, I was in an American school, but somehow it didn't help. Okay, Stefan. So thank you very much. I have to confess, I messed up our last podcast technically. So I'm very, very grateful that you agreed to repeat this conversation. So maybe some jokes we're gonna repeat, or I don't know. We will see.
Come up with new ones.
Yeah, come up with some new ones. And so Stefan Beiten, thank you very much for being here. I just first do a short introduction. Yeah, you are such an interesting person and personalities. You have done so much already in your life. So that's really special. It starts with maybe what you are most and best known for is you are a film producer. You have produced many animation TV episodes, but maybe the most important thing were the two global hits you produced, Deep Blue and Planet Earth, I think together with the BBC. And with these films, you influenced altogether more than 1 billion people on this beautiful earth. And you somehow, I would say, you created or you helped to create an awareness for the beauty of this planet. Because these films are so stunning and so fantastic and so beautiful. But you're not only a film producer, you are also an investor. You have structured and placed more than $1 billion investments. You have founded 20 companies or more. You have raised many kids, three kids. And there's another billion number. You have been for a while, at least on paper, a billionaire. That's also really a crazy experience, I can imagine, especially as if there comes the big crisis. Criteria crisis. So when there comes the big crisis, and almost everything is gone again. So maybe you can start with that. How does it feel to be? What is this excitement? What is this feeling? And what is the feeling, or are you learning if everything is gone again in your life?
It's a very human, humbling moment.
Humbling, I can imagine.
That's really the prevailing feeling. Once you get through the shock and say, "Oh my God, what just happened?" Because it happened very fast. Famous of summer 2008.
So a few weeks and everything is gone.
A few months.
And
then Lehman went under, and
then that's it.
Was down from $1 billion plus to minus 50 million.
Oh, even to minus. Fantastic. Okay. Wow. Okay. But okay, very, very, very interesting. And but then you somehow you defeated also the whole thing, and you somehow invented yourself new. Then after that, right?
Defeated the thing. That's a good actually expression, because it's like a monster that you have to wrestle with and wrestle down. But mostly it's the monster inside of you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because you in those situations where my experience is I was basically faced with everything that defined me positively and negatively, and was brought into the open. So and noticed that I could either now go at the challenge with the same level of thinking that created it, hoping for a different outcome, or redefine, reset, restart not only the outside world or the material world that is now defined as on a bank account, but also restart the inner world to create a new operating system that would allow eventually for a different outcome.
Okay. So somehow from this perspective, it's even a kind of a present, a very ugly packed present, but somehow also a present for at least for your inner life, or what would you say?
Yeah, who said that? Never waste a good crisis.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, not sure who came up with that, but it's a good quote. Definitely. So it's always a gift, but usually in retrospect.
That's true.
And it hasn't killed you.
Yeah. Usually in retrospect, it's true. I mean, the scales were much smaller in my story, but I also had this insolvency with my company. We talked about that during last time lunch, and what was so interesting was that I had always there was a certain, how you say, even a level in my experience that was like a observer, and it always observed what was going on here. And one very interesting observation is, it's like if you are in this turmoil of this crisis, the normal let's say natural laws that don't work anymore. They stop working, and so you can't, exactly as you say, you can't use the old operating system anymore. And what I experienced was that I had to shift to more kind of intuition way of working in this moment, because there was nothing else available. Can you? Totally.
I mean, and both of us as classic Western European academics from training background. So the belief that the IQ, the Homo sapiens part of our whatever you call intelligence is the prevailing one, and everything that is measurable is good, and everything else is in the realm of either religion, esoteric, or somewhere. But we need to be able to define it, analyze it, measure it. Then we'll find a solution. And all of a sudden, that's exactly what's not working anymore, because the complexities you're facing that are basically blown into my face, and I noticed, my little human Homo sapiens brain can grapple with 7 variables at the same time. And those are hundreds.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do now with all the law books and history books and philosophy books I've read? That didn't help a lot.
No. So and then, so after you let's say lived through this crisis, how did you collect yourself together? How did you restart the whole thing?
There is no starting point. It's a process, and it is. If you want to break it down to a defining moment, it is actually a still cognitive element where, and actually I learned that it was an aha moment in a presentation from a friend of mine who's a doctor, but was the first Ayurvedic doctor in Germany. He built the first Ayurvedic clinic.
Oh,
Uli Bauhofer in Munich.
Oh, I know him. Yeah. Okay,
and
right.
he had a great presentation and saying, "Yeah, life happens in the space between." And I went like, "Huh? What?" He said, "Yeah, in the space between impulse and reaction." I said, "Oh, okay. What does that mean?"
Yeah, what does it that means?
And then shortly after, a friend of mine, Christoph Koch, said, "Yeah, actually, that's what the whole thing of Gnosis is all about. This awareness, or this Apollonian imperative of basically saying, human, find out what it means to be human.
So know thyself.
Know thyself is that moment of there's something happening on the outside." And I can either just have my whole system just react to it, try to use an operating system of the narrative that I was born into, or say, hold on a second, can I change that story? That my whole system is now reacting, creating an emotion. Emotion creates a feeling. Feeling creates a thinking, and that creates an action or then a habit. Can I even change the emotion? My physiological energy in motion, by just holding on and saying, yep, that little space before that outer impulse creates an inner reactive impulse or reaction. I can fill that space myself. So from that cognitive moment, learning from Uli to Christoph's mentioning, put it together in my own concept or conceptual understanding of it. And then these moments, I was able to, going back to your observer metaphor, to observe myself and, oh, here it comes. There is such a moment.
The observer point, yeah, okay.
And that allowed me to put myself in that observer position. And that became a process and a way. Up to a point where sometimes it happens that I at least notice that I could be an observer of me observing.
Oh, yes.
And that becomes then pretty crazy. But what it does allow is it grows kind of an inner muscle. And with that inner muscle, the ability to change the emotion that changes the thinking becomes a habit.
A habit, yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's really funny because we had a pre-talk and we said let's first talk a little bit about you. Now we are already in it. Okay.
Let's go back to your original question. So, what happened? What happened, and how did I overcome that? It is exactly that ability, that growing of the inner muscle, that allowed me to then, well, basically look at the situation and come intuitively, exactly what you said about your own journey. Come up, trust a process where intuitively there will be a different solution. Or at least different interpretations of alternatives that life just presents. And then I could put them together in different ways, and that created different approaches, different solutions.
Okay, that's very well explained. Thank you. Yeah, I was laughing because we will later talk about your big new project, the Argonauts. But we said, oh, let's first talk about Stefan, and now we're already almost into it. So let's talk a little bit more about you first, and we will come back to that. There are some things you say about yourself in a nutshell. That's original Stefan Beiten. Partner, family man, father, and friend. 100%. Friend? What would you say is friend? Being a friend?
Friendship for me is almost the core of my feeling of aliveness. And what a happy life circles around. It's very often said that it's family. I'm not so sure of that. Because family is something you're born into. Yeah. There is no choice. So you have a predisposition that is also your bias, positive and negative. Friendship, true friendship, is what needs to be developed.
Yeah.
And what I love about a deeper concept of friendship is to look at it in 4 levels.
Okay, tell me.
First friendship is the one that we know most, is a hedonistic approach. Well, we're just having fun together. We're going to see a soccer game, going on vacation, going on a party. When the event is over, well, that friendship fulfilled its need and can be revived again later, but there's nothing between the events.
It's true, and many friendships are around common interests, common hobbies, and so on. Especially with men, it's like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from a biochemical perspective, very dopamine driven. We just allow each other to create dopamine, feel great, and then go about other things. Then the next one is the friendship of purpose, which is what we know most about in any business environment. Well, what's in it for me? When there's something in it for me, there's something in it for you. Bring it together, fulfill the purpose. Done.
Okay.
And that is kind of a 2-dimensional look at life that is by definition 2-dimensional, thereby superficial. And the same goes for most of the friendships that I wouldn't even call friendships. Those are acquaintances.
There's in German such a nice word, Zweckfreundschaften.
Yeah, that's a great thing about German language. Just add another word, Zweck, and have a new definition. Yeah, it's that's a great advantage of the German language. Exactly, that's what it is. It's a Zweckfreundschaft, either a
friendship for
material purpose or a fun purpose.
Yeah.
But where it really becomes interesting is the next level. It's the friendship of virtue. So, and that's when there is a higher purpose to it. When it goes beyond the initial trigger or the initial goal. When you are willing to give up something of yourself, especially of the material part, in order to keep that friendship alive. So what are you willing to give up? So that is going from a me perspective of the purpose to a we perspective.
Yeah, I get it.
And then there's the 4th level of friendship. And it's a true higher level. That's the 4th dimension, so to speak, where it's the friendship of virtue is going into the soul. You have to reach deeper, and what's truly driving me, what's truly connecting me on a deep emotional base, that's already very rare. But to go into a friendship, onto a friendship level of the spirit, is when you can go into a flow state with one another. It is what is so beautiful to watch when you're in a symphonic orchestra, or when you see one of the great bands on stage, how they are in flow with another. That is that level of spirit. That is the rarest. So when I say 100% friend, then the friendships I've had for decades, they're defined by exactly these dimensions.
Beautiful. I guess maybe this is the reason why one says there are only very few real friends you have in your life, because I think it's quite a great gift to find persons who are able to meet you at this level.
It's a gift,
friendship,
and at the same time, it's also I think it's one of the it's demanded by life. It's one of the tasks. It's one of the imperatives, because in order to find this, it just doesn't stumble across. If you're not, at least talking about me, if I'm not open to receive that gift of a value-based friendship or a spirit-based friendship, if I'm not open to that, I will not get it, even if it's presented to me right in front of me. I will not be able to connect on that level. So where does it start with? The gift that's given from the outside, or does it start with myself? And that was one of the lessons I learned in that journey. As without those friendships and without me being able to connect and open to that gift that was offered, that was always there, but I took for granted. Because one thing I think we both experienced, when shit hits the fan, you very quickly know how many friends you truly have.
That's true.
And spoiler alert, it's not the friends on Facebook.
Yeah, and it's not maybe those you thought they would be the ones.
Definitely not those.
It's different ones.
Especially not, there's especially one that was a former mentor of mine that presented himself always as a friend of the family.
And not at all.
Not at all. Interestingly, a lawyer. And someone who also studied philosophy.
Okay.
But not open, not being able to connect with himself, and thereby not able to really bring the friendship to the table when it was asked for.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, let's see what else do we have here. Out-of-the-box thinker and entrepreneurial architect. No, architect.
Architect.
Entrepreneurial architect. That's the American way to say.
Pretty
right?
much.
Yeah, okay. So 100%.
That is me just being actually at my heart a creative, but I can also manifest my creative ideas. And instead of putting it on a canvas and painting or doing something classic creative, I just like to build organization. I like to build stuff.
Yeah, I see that. That's also something special, because I would say there are many creative people who have a lot of ideas, good ideas, but there are not many who are able to manifest that, to really do something out of it, to bring it into the world and get something moving. And that's what you do, right?
Which is why, if you go to step 5, 75% self-deception expert.
Yeah, this is the one I like very much. Self-delusion expert.
Oh, self-delusion, I called it, exactly. It's a really great one, because you need to be absolutely delusional between the big vision that you have and what it actually takes to get there. If you're not completely delusional, you will just not start it, because it is actually impossible. And when you look back, I've never ever seen the business plan that was originally put together that exactly happened the way it is.
Never, ever.
It's actually one of my mentors once said, the business plan that is exactly happening as was planned wasn't meant seriously in the first place. So that is, the trick is that delusional element, but without losing complete control.
Yeah. And somehow you need to fade out the risk on a certain level.
Totally.
Because if you think about the risk. Yeah.
And that's another thing. That is, again, goes back to that, where does life happen? If the space in between is filled with a view on risk, then all you see is risk.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's actually, not sure which school of psychology that is, but it's these classic situations. You drive alongside a road, completely empty, no trees whatsoever. There's exactly one tree or one lamppost, and statistically, that is where accidents happen. Statistically, there should be just a fraction of those happening, but just because there is one that people can focus on, it's like, please hit me.
Yeah.
And it creates an accident that shouldn't happen in the first place.
You know, I think it has something to do with that our psyche has a problem to process the word no or not. It doesn't really exist for the psyche.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this means for example, I think, and this is also used by sometimes by statesmen, if they say, I will not go to war. No, then it's somehow, you understand, I will go to war. And this is why you also, with children, you never say, don't go not on the street, because then for the child, it's street, go street. It's more like stay on the pavement.
Stay here.
Stay here. Yeah, funny.
I think the manifestation power of the human brain is most of the time underestimated. And that goes for the positive and the negative. So again, going back to, if you're risk prone, all you see is risk. And then all of a sudden risk unfolds. And subjectively you think, see, here it happens. I knew it. And then it becomes a self-sustaining, self-creating reality.
So this is the reason also why you use the word manifest. Because manifestation is something like, it's a little bit, there is an element of out of the nothing. It's coming out of unexpected, something like that.
That is actually this beautiful, magical mystery of being human. That we're the only species that can have an idea, which is nothing but an electronic spark in our brains. And all of a sudden, it's a building, it's a company, it's a country.
Yeah.
It's war, it's peace.
Yeah.
But it was nothing but an electromagnetic spark between two neurons.
Yeah. And we have the illusion that we had a conscious decision, what we did here, and it was already done, the decision.
Yeah, that's this great quote, I think, from Daniel Kahneman, that we're emotional beings and we use logic to justify our emotions.
Oh, that's great.
After the fact.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on. What else do we have here? What I like, there is a purpose from you. You say that your essence is to nurture and inspire the human spirit in innovators, entrepreneurs, and executives worldwide. Here we are already a little bit at the Argonauts, right? And you want to support leaders you support leaders to empower others and be empowered by finding their own meaning outside of the story we are all born into. I like this picture of the story. So was, for example, the story, I'm a billionaire. This is a story you tell yourself, or the story, I had this and this parents and I had that and that fate in my life and things like that. Before we go to Argonauts, maybe in terms of being an early stage investor, how are you here an empowerer for others?
Everything I do in that space, it's not just here's some money, go run with it and call me back if it's when it's successful or it didn't work out. But it's bringing in experience, network, ideas, guidance. And it's a little bit in a castrated position because you can't be you're not a full investor, you're not a full entrepreneur, you're something in between. It's kind of a hybrid. But that is usually what makes the difference. What I'm definitely not, I'm not just someone who has an Excel spreadsheet and looks at the things and needs an average ROI. That is why I also don't even like the word venture capitalist for them, because usually they're just capitalists and then administer a portfolio. That's also why they're all like lemmings. It's a big fashion and they're all in. And in the second, it's not good. Like the situation is right now, they're all out at the same time because it doesn't meet the average return on interest on a spreadsheet, instead of looking at the venture and the people and the ideas and the potential with a more holistic mindset.
Okay. And you also say that you reject ideology-based mindsets. Where is this space for you?
Especially being German. We've had not such a good run with any kind of ideology, have we?
That's true, yeah.
How many times have we changed our system in just 100 years? every time believing we are the owners of the absolute truth. So any absolutes are just makes me shiver. So dogmatic ideological thinking is just, for me, absolute wrong, just by definition. So, and it's not the times anymore. I think if there's an end of utopia that could ever be defined in our today's century, then I believe it's the end of beliefs in absolute truths. Hence, it's actually the end of ideologies and dogmatic thinking.
And it has something to do also with the space, right? Between how is the site between an event and your response? This space is a very, very, very open space. You have to be extremely open. You can't close down your beliefs, right?
Well, tell me, what do you mean by close down your beliefs?
Yeah, I just thought about, is this correct? Or what do I mean with that? I mean is be locked in your beliefs, let's say.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of where the dogma starts. So our brain, of course, it hates change. It uses up most of the sugar in our body, and just from an evolutionary perspective, sugar was not abundant. So we need to preserve it.
Yeah.
So our whole system is made for energy preservation. And that starts with thinking. So if there's any change in our routines or anything or any patterns that we know, we need to think more, thereby use up more energy, and then we don't know, hey, do I have enough energy tomorrow or next week? So it's a constant survival even mechanism, not to overthink, not to question a existing truth. So we're actually made for dogmatic thinking or being in an expert mind. So but that is kind of the animalistic. Animalistic. You can say that's the rule of the old brain in us, the amygdala, that reduces actually our the ability of the human mind down to almost, in its worst part, to 3 action.
Eat,
abilities.
sex, and sleep, or what is it?
Well, fight, flight, or stall.
Yeah, fight, flight. Okay.
And the next one would be eat. Exactly. But fight, flight, or stall, because we're basically, by definition, by default, fear-driven creatures. We still believe that the saber-toothed tiger is around the corner and will eat us, or that we'll just not get enough food and we'll die. None of which is true anymore. Haven't seen a saber-toothed tiger on Kudam lately.
Not really.
And I've not seen starving people in this country, at least. So, but the fear is still there. It's ingrained in our system. And that is what is the primary driver. So to overcome that.
So, but you would say the tendency to somehow believe ideologies, what was through all its history, at least as we know it, a very, very important part of the humanity. You think it is driven by these fears?
It is driven by fear, by need for existential survival.
Yeah, and then it's like a safe haven. Safe haven.
Yes, because at the end of the day, the fact that we're sitting here is just because in our ancestral lineage, we were part of the surviving tribe.
Oh yes.
The person that is not sitting here, or
so surviving was the main focus.
Was the main focus
through thousands and hundred thousands of years, millions.
Exactly, and we're not that strong as part of the animal kingdom. Our strength comes from coordinating, working together.
I once saw a very interesting podcast with Lex Friedman, I guess. Lex Friedman with 2. Do we have enough? But you have some verven and some water, with some evolutionary biologists, and they were talking about the niches of animals. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's very interesting. And so each and every animal has a niche for how to survive. So it is either very strong, or it can climb very good, or is specialized on certain plants, or whatever it is. And the problem for them is that if the niche is somehow closed down, so it's not available anymore, the animal is going to die out because it can't survive in other Umwelt, in other surroundings. Do you know what is the niche of the human? It's very interesting.
The collaborative niche?
No, it's interesting. The human is the niche changer.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's able to change niches. And this is why we are ahead. So
highly adaptive.
Highly adaptive, yeah.
Well, that's the definition of evolution by Darwin. Usually incorrectly quoted by the stronger survives, but it's the one most adaptive to change.
Okay, you see that. And because I asked you this question with the ideology, because I already slowly wanted to get now the turn to your newest project. And last time when we were here together, I asked you, what is your next billion goal? So your next billion project after the 3 firsts you had already in your life. And you answered me, it's what you're doing currently. It's the Argonaut network. And we just will start talking about that now. And I just wanted to make very clear that you are not a person who likes ideologies, and it has nothing to do with an ideology. It's about the open space.
Exactly.
About the openness.
It's exactly the opposite of it.
The opposite, yeah.
And then also overcoming the conundrum that in order to find an open space, you still need to build a systematic approach, but which is open enough to be highly, adaptive. Not only to a system, but also for each individual. So that's kind of the conundrum of human existence. On the one hand, we need the structure and the clarity. And on the other hand, it needs to be open enough to be creative and multidimensional and dynamic.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the Argonauts. What's about it?
Well, there's a reason why we chose that myth, that name. So it's one of the founding myths actually of the Western culture. And when you break it down to the max, it's about someone inviting the leading heroes at that time that mythological Greek time, and 50 came to a beach, one of which was Hercules. So each individually a superhero at the peak of their success, but individual heroes. Now he said, well, Jason said, let's go and find the golden fleece, the metaphorical fulfillment in life. But in order to do so, I need you to get on a boat and become from a me hero, develop to a group hero. Because all of a sudden, it was not about the individual competence. It was about the collaborative ability, going from a me to a we space, row in absolute coherence.
Yeah.
And without that coherence, that flow state you get as a group, the ship could not be fast enough and would be crushed.
And they went into the unknown.
And then they went into the unknown together. And they were going into a state that we know from lots of other fields in our normal lives, like in sports, der Ruderachter in German. No idea what is that? Sculling in English, where 8 people row in sync, and everybody has to row exactly in the same millisecond, or the whole thing's going to collapse.
Yeah.
Or you have it in the military, Navy SEALs versus single soldiers. It's they're having a 0.4% advantage, 0.4 second advantage over an individual soldier. That is the difference between life and death. Just because as a group, they work as one. And we see it every time we go to see a great band, what I said before, a symphonic orchestra.
Yeah.
30, 40, 50 people in an orchestra. they're not even looking at the conductor, they're feeling it, and are all playing in absolute synchronicity and absolute coherence and resonance with one another.
Yeah.
To get to that state, that is what makes humans almost godlike.
So, and at the Argonauts, it's like a kind of a network you provide, as I hear now, not only in the individual journey for each person who is part of the network, you somehow provide also a collective journey or something for organizations, that if the individuals of the organization would go through the programs of your network, they would be more in the we state and
let's go back to what we do. So why are we called that way? Because the idea is to give what is known in other fields is kind of unknown in both our private lives, but especially in the business life. There it's still everyone for themselves. And now we live in this what's known as the VUCA world. This complex and unknown and volatile, uncertain, and it gets more and more complex. And believe that the old institutions, the old ways will find the new solutions is eroding, and we see that every single company sees it and lives it, and people get frustrated. They don't know how to speak that language anymore that is needed in order to cope with these new challenges. And that is what we believe. Hence Argonauts. So as individual heroes, that's got us where we are. In order to get us where we need to be, we need to have a different operating system. And that operating system is going from a me, the I hero. I'm Dr. So-and-so, have a university degree and 20 years of experience. I know my shit.
Yeah, the expert.
To, but that complexity is more than what I've ever learned. So how can I solve this? I don't even speak the language of that. So, and for that, we provide the space. And within that space, a process, tools, and a new language that allows to think differently and thereby create a operating system together.
Okay, so let's start putting the pieces together. First of all, maybe start with the individual, with the person. First of all, I see there is you talk about what you call meta values, and that's also your acronym ARE. Awareness, responsibility, and empathy. So what's about this meta values?
We looked at dozens of philosophies, mystery schools, religions, belief systems, and schools of psychology. And when you look at all of them, the pattern that we saw is that it could be actually reduced to those meta values as kind of the keys to opening a completely new door of a being state in humans. And that's what they're all agreed on. And so what are they? So awareness, A, is actually the gnophyseoton that already the Greeks told us. And they made it as a good reason, made it the imperative of the highest god, Apollo. And that know thyself, find out what it means to be human, is step one. And that goes back to what we said before, that where does life happen? In that space between. There's an impulse. Now, can I use awareness to understand, it is just an impulse, and I don't need to just allow my system to just go on autopilot and react to it. Just that I see that my system is already in autopilot mode is exactly that moment of awareness that says, hold on. Autopilot can be good, especially when I need to run away. But actually, if I want to be truly human, I can now define how I react to it. That is awareness. So then I can go to step two. And that's this great English word, responsibility. Because it has a dual meaning. Am I able to respond? And can I do this with responsibility, accepting that it's always me who sets the conditions. I'm not just a victim of, life is not just happening to me. So I can take responsibility and thereby respond. But in order to respond, I need to be aware of it first, that I can actually do that. So it's one needs the other. And then step 3, how do I respond? And that is where empathy comes into play. And empathy is just not, I feel what the other person feels. No, actually, I'm not even actually able to do that. But especially it starts with oneself. Can I actually embrace myself, love myself, feel empathetic for myself? Because I cannot feel empathy for someone else unless I feel it with myself first, without being egotistical. So step 1, empathy for myself, then for the other, and then create a third space of empathy together. So that is what allows me to go from a me to a we state, and then collaborate with another person, find a solution for a conflict, find the conversation for a missing conversation, find out my blind spots. Because in that third space of mutually shared empathy, that's where trust evolves. And that correlates interestingly with also our biochemistry. Because that is where we have a hormone called oxytocin. That is that allows us to create trust. And that can only happen in a space where we feel for one another. That I feel I can trust you.
Yeah.
Hence oxytocin, hence more trust. To get there, awareness, responsibility, empathy.
If I listen to you, I have a feeling, because there are values that are, there's a let's say a class of values that are, I would say, what we call normative values. Like you shall not, I don't know, you shall not rub something, or you shall not be interested in the wife of your neighbor, and things like that. They are normative. So this means they are somehow top-down given to us, and we try to meet them, but we struggle to meet them very often. Yeah. And if we, in our context of scale up, if we do core values with our teams, we say don't do them normatively. So don't give them a meaning from outside, and then you try somehow to keep them, but find out what's within you. What is your core? What are your values, and how you like to be together, to work together? Yeah. And I have a feeling that this is what you're telling here is also not normative, but more like it's kind of part of the human nature. It seems to be part of the human nature but has to be somehow, how you say, like a gold mine, a gold digging in your own awareness or in your own self to find it out, right?
Precisely. It's inherited. It's within all of us. That is. And the challenge is, how can we create a space, starting with ourselves, that allows us to go there? Because by default, we're fear-based. When we're fear-based, it is very hard to become aware. That takes a lot of energy.
Oh, yes.
Because then our amygdala takes over, which is the oldest and smallest part of the brain that we already had millions of years ago. And then millions of years of evolution are just stronger and faster than approximately 200,000 years of evolution, which is what our frontal cortex, or the age of our frontal cortex seems to be.
Yeah.
That allows awareness to be articulated and manifested.
And in this context, you talk also about being below the line or above the line. When I first heard that, I have to confess, I didn't like it in the first moment, because I thought, okay, who defines who is above the line? Yeah, and is he himself also above the line, or you know what's going on here? But meanwhile, I think I understand it more, and I think it is more like I have a pair of words I always like to bring into opposites. It's love and fear. And you already very nice described the fear state. And the fear state has something to do with the, let's say, a focus on being separated. You feel yourself separated from the world, and you have to fight, because out of separation you need to survive, because there's no good for you. You have to somehow get something good. The love state is connectedness. And this gives you, what you say, this kind of emotional security. It's a feeling of I'm connected with everybody, I'm connected with everything, and so I can be open-minded.
Beautiful. And that's exactly what it is. So above and below the line, we borrowed from a group called 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And I just loved it. Very American to approach, simply say, hey, can you locate yourself where you are? Just take a blank piece of paper and draw a line. You're either above or below. So very un-German, but I loved it because that picture immediately helps you to get the concept. That's why we like it. Conceptually, philosophically, I'm totally with you. Then we can go a little bit further. So psychologically, when you look at Maslow, he also defined below and above the line. Basically, you're either in a deficiency state or in a growth state. Yeah. Or you take Plato. You're either in the cave, looking at the shadows of the wall, or you're turning around and see where does this light actually come from, and you're getting out of the cave, the growth state or above the line. So it's metaphoric, but it says exactly what you just defined. You're either in a all about me state, which is the fear state. There, by definition, you can only be reactive. Hence, amygdala is taking over, and you're basically just working with 2, max 3 hormones in your of the 6 neuroreceptors that you actually have available, which is dopamine as the oldest hormone, testosterone, and then a little bit of serotonin, but definitely not enough. And that's all that defines your existence. That's deficient. So biochemistry correlates with human needs, correlates with the philosophy, and correlates with our sociological structure that we're in. And I must unfortunately say that our whole system that we're in is deficient by design, both psychologically and from a neurobiological perspective. And we're basically forced to find ourselves how to get into a higher state or into this state of growth.
Yeah, oh my God. This is a very philosophical question for me. I always think about why are we humans like that? And I have one answer is for me that maybe we are kind of an evolutionary experiment. And it might fail completely, or we have to cross the bridge. And after we cross the bridge, all this deficiency will be maybe somehow, I don't know, diluted or so, and we will be much stronger. It's kind of a Hegel idea, it is a dialectic idea, yeah. So that we will meet on a higher level of awareness finally. And my feeling is that we have very different levels in humanity at the moment. It's also scientifical, this is this step model, what is very well researched. So what do you think? Why are we as we are at the moment?
First of all, Hegel, great idea, but it's 18th century?
Yeah. True.
So there's been a few hundred years of also empirical research that actually showed it's a nice idea, or what's his name again? Spiral dynamics.
Ken Wilber.
Ken Wilber. The problem with that approach is nothing in humanity goes in concentric spirals, just upwards, all hunky-dory. We're just going to step one further. We're all over the place. It just depends on what we make of it. So, but what I do believe, with the right set and setting, the right space, the right language, the right context,
Yeah.
where we can move like data clouds of single events and slowly towards a growth, we gravitate towards a growth state of existence. That I would say is a more precise articulation.
Yeah.
But we constantly, we go up and down and fall back and are shitty in a shitty mode. And the next thing, like today, honestly, I was in a shitty mode until I got here. And now we have a great conversation and I'm completely different. So, so is that a different archetype of me showing up? That's what psychologically you could say, or biochemically, I definitely, if you would take my blood now, I have a completely different distribution of hormone and reward, so the reward receptors. So different, definitely more oxytocin, and it's more playful. And my serotonin level this morning was in the shits. So you can look at it biochemically, and all of that we've changed. What have we changed? We've just changed the space. We changed the context. We changed the conversation, and all of a sudden, our biological manifestation, meaning our body, changes. That creates a different emotion, creates a different feeling, different conversation. Thereby, based on that, definitely a different manifestation. So our goal is to create this space I'm just describing on a consistent base. And interestingly, in order to get to this growth level, to above the line, it needs a different protocol, a different conversation protocol. One, unfortunately, that we've not learned, that we're not trained in.
Okay, now let's take us on the journey. You have like conversation circles, and they go through waves. As I see, you have 4 waves. Can you maybe take us a little bit through these 4 waves?
Yes. So we're calling it waves because of exactly that thought, that it's not a curriculum, that is not fixed, that you're not going in concentric circles or steps upwards like you're going through 4 years of university and then you make a master and you get a degree. It's not how it works. It's more waves. It flows and it goes back and the other comes in. But as you go along from this IQ intelligence space of mind that we're all trained in, the normal language that we have, the KPI-driven, the solution-based language, the advice-giving language, the measurable outcome language, into that EQ, emotional intelligence space, that is where it becomes wavy, and we approach it first. The first wave through the cognitive mind, then the sensoric, then the emotional, then the being state, and it goes back again. But the core of these is always the same language protocol, and that's actually a very simple one and super hard to implement and to turn it into a second nature.
Okay, because I can imagine that maybe our mental, unser Geist in English, not spirit, also ich meine jetzt nicht den Spirit, sondern mehr so unser mentaler Geist.
Our conditioning
tries to escape always.
Oh yeah.
You know, it always tries to put a new story. You have sometimes this very fantastic experiences. You think, oh, I'm in a new state now, and then there comes the mind, and starts creating a story and pulling you back into the old pattern. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Because what does it do? It wants to go to old patterns.
Yeah.
Because it takes less energy, and whatever takes less energy, I'm less afraid of.
That's good. I just have to think about our dog, how much he's sleeping whole day. So always energy saving mode. Sorry for this picture. Let's go
totally
on.
Right. It's exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, and so this means you have this protocol. You have a certain, let's say, language protocol, a certain procedure in this circles. I think there is a facilitator in the circle who somehow help the participants to really go through the protocols, to really use the technique in the right way, right?
At the end, what we're doing is there's nothing new. It's this language protocol is based on something called Gestalt psychology. It's actually it was discovered
by Mr. Gestalt.
Actually, Fritz Perls in Berlin in the 30s, and then taken to immigrated to California, and that's where it became a whole school and a whole school of psychology. And the protocol was used as kind of a forum, known as forum principles. It was introduced to the largest CEO organization on the planet, YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And there it's been used by over 30,000 CEOs constantly on a monthly level. And I'm also a member of that fantastic organization.
You want some of that?
Oh, I'd love to. And what I saw, it's this amazing tool needs three things. It needs democratization, because it cannot just be with CEOs. Everybody needs this.
Very good.
It needs digitization, because it's otherwise just a few people in a room. We're living in a digital world, so how can you make this experience digital without losing the magic of it? And you need to professionalize it.
Yeah.
It's what we saw is it needs a professional facilitator. Why does it need it? Because we're not trained in it. And what we are trained in is we see a problem from the outside, we'll go into what we've learned, what our competence allows, and then we find a solution for it. And we make it measurable, and then we give advice to someone else to find a solution, or we'll find the material aspects of how to get a solution for the problem that comes from the outside. But now with much higher complexities, that simplistic, dualistic, mechanistic thinking model, just using our IQ part of the brain, is just not enough. So we're adding simply a completely different dimension of our intelligence, which is the emotional intelligence. Now the EQ. But the problem is that the EQ needs a different language. We've not learned that in university. We've not learned it in school, not in kindergarten, because that educational world of ours is based on the mechanistic thinking model that that was introduced to us about 350 years ago.
Yeah. And you have this formula, what you call IQ plus EQ equals CQ, right?
Exactly. It's of course not a mathematical algorithm. It's a
picture.
It's a picture. It's a metaphorical algorithm, so to speak. Also, almost to make fun of the mechanistic model it represents, because it's exactly the opposite. But it shows exactly what happened in the Argonaut myth. The individual hero is kind of the representative of the IQ-based expert. Now, in order to become a group hero, you need to connect with people. Connecting with people is not by exchanging the numbers on your bank account, or what you've learned in university, or the achievements you had in your life. It is by truly connecting on an emotional level. How to connect emotionally? Well, that's where the problem starts. That is what we've not learned. Truly, because that needs a language of vulnerability, of being open, with an open heart and an open mind, and then truly finding out what's our connecting values, what's our connecting spirit. Can we be connected by going on that voyage together to find that metaphorical fulfillment, the golden fleece? And can we create a vessel together that is stronger and faster than others in order to survive that journey, metaphorically speaking? And that is not possible with just IQ, expert. That is only possible with adding the EQ space. And for that, we need to grow that muscle, that EQ muscle, that what we call conversational fluency. And for that is what is the space that we're providing by democratizing, professionalizing, digitizing the form experience.
Okay. And the picture of this vessel is also already a picture of, can be a picture of an organization, of a company.
The smallest vessel is basically 8 people. 8 people around a virtual table in a virtual space, but also meeting personally at some time. But it's once a month, 8 people meet together with a professional facilitator that keeps that protocol, that makes sure that this muscle it's like a private, think of it like a private gym. And you have a professional trainer, and with a perfect diet and sport plan, you still need to lift the weights yourself because otherwise no muscle is growing. But that you do consistently. And as the muscle is growing, so is the state is changing. And EQ is added more and more to your already pre-existing high level of IQ. And all of a sudden, human intelligence is unfolding exponentially. And that is what enables the individual and the group to bring completely different solutions that no one saw before.
I see here there are some let's say words you connect to, I think, to this process and to this protocol of how to talk to each other, how to deal with each other. There is you say there is vulnerability, non-advice giving, listening with an open heart, and zero judgment. So are these the 4, let's say, really main?
Those are the 4 pillars.
The pillars.
The pillars. And starting with the last, non-judgment. That's a tough one for IQ-based experts.
Seem almost impossible because you always judge. Is it good? Is it bad? Do I like it? Do I don't like it?
And why do we judge? Because it's that survival thing, the instinct. If we go in a room, we need to know, is there danger? In order to find that our brain creates good, bad, black, white situation, as simple and as fast as possible, or judgments. But that is the animalistic part of our brain. That's this super high-speed amygdala reacting, which is fine as long as we are still the ruler of our brain and not being ruled by only that part of the brain. That is the awareness factor that needs to kick in, where we can fill that space, going into a room, our impulse is judging. I become aware of it. I say, okay, great. Is that judgment true? Or can I actually leave it aside? If I can, all of a sudden I can. No, let's start to connect. Connection with people starts with.
But what you need for that process, you need time, and you need a certain kind of being relaxed enough. Otherwise, if you're in a stressy situation, you can't do that. You're just like, how will I survive here in this room with these people or whatever? So I think there is a big deal in training yourself to stay relaxed in such situations.
Which is exactly why we are providing the space for that.
Safe space.
Safe space.
Yeah, for the training.
For the training, for that conversation to happen, which just happens once a month, 2.5 hours. Guaranteed that everything that usually causes stress is already taken out of the picture. That's precisely the context that we provide.
And what I like very much is the vulnerability. It's something I'm very fascinated of, and it's maybe like the flip side of the coin to zero judgment. For me, the picture is you let go, the mask. It's clear, but what is the mask? The mask is the story that you tell about yourself. It's the role you play. It's the picture you try to draw about who you are and what person you are. And this is very often the stories we tell ourselves all the day. Who am I? I'm a super smart, philosopher, or you're a super smart entrepreneur, or I'm a billionaire, or whatever. All these stories. And to let go everything of that and to be really what is now and who are you now, a human being with emotions, with fears, with weaknesses. And what my experience is, I think I'm not so bad in becoming vulnerable. And my experience is it's paradox because it makes you invincible. It's really interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a paradox.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to see that there where our greatest fear lies, to be vulnerable, because it puts us into what is the two biggest fears that the inner kid in us has. We're not enough, and we're not loved. Mm-hmm. So the last thing on earth that we want to show is that we're actually vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not to show that our core fear is, am I actually enough? When I'm vulnerable, I'm actually showing that I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But by showing, I'm actually showing the true strength. I'm becoming adult.
Yeah.
And that's the fascinating thing that, according to Robert Keegan, one of the researchers in Harvard that created the adult development theory, is 75% of the population stays at a stage where is following the narrative that they're born into because there's too much fear to create one's own. Mm-hmm. So basically, a 9-year-old in an adult body
very often
wants to be protected at all costs.
Yeah. What I like very much is this. Do you know Mr. Schwartz with the inner family system? Mm-hmm. And I like very much this having family members in myself. So I'm not only the 9-year-old boy, but there is the 9-year-old boy, and it's the question: how do I deal with this boy? Huh?
And is he in the king position?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you put him there, or do you just accept him as part of that Olymp or the family constellation within oneself?
Yeah. And maybe just what does he need? Maybe he just needs some patting, everything is fine, don't worry. Mm-hmm. It's maybe sometimes enough.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. And for that boy or girl to feel that way, for that to have a space of psychological trust and safety is everything. And that is the starting point. Mm. That's why we organize the Argonauts in such a way. Mm-hmm. And the inner space, the trust circle space, is exactly that space. And since everybody who enters that space knows that there is no attack coming, no judgment coming, all of a sudden you're allowed. It's the language protocol to be vulnerable, to be listening, truly listening to one another. All of a sudden, a new universe unfolds, because all the emotional intelligence that we have all within us is allowed to become alive, and then added to the skill competencies that we all have. Well, that is what creates a creative potential that was unknown for. And now going back to who needs it the most, other than us as individuals. We need it. We need it in our families, but as professional beings, well, we need to bring it to our organizations, because they're faced with a challenge to find innovations faster to more complex questions than ever before, and to find those with just KPI-based IQ thinking is almost laughable. Because it is exactly falling into the trap that Einstein described as the famous chicken and egg quote from him, that if we believe that we can solve the problems with the same mindset or same thinking that created them, it's literally expecting a different outcome is literally the definition of being nuts.
Yeah, Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about organizations. You have a citation of Bob Anderson and Billy Adams. An organization cannot perform at a higher level than the collective consciousness of its leadership. So, what's about that?
Yeah, I love that quote. It took me a while to understand what they meant by it, because I first came across their research with my German legal mindset, the IQ mindset. And I really thought, what the hell is consciousness? What do they mean by that? And they put it immediately in the esoteric corner and judged it, closed my mind. And I remember the first time I came across, I think then I didn't touch that book for 3 years. And then I came across it again with a different mindset. And all of a sudden I saw what they mean. And I started with myself that every wrong decision I made that led to wrong outcomes was based on a level of consciousness that came from an old narrative, my old self. But the problem that I was facing, the challenge that I was facing, needed a different level of consciousness for which I couldn't find the answer. So I saw it literally within myself and also within the partners. We had a partnership. We're still amazing friends. But 20 years ago, 15 years ago now, when we were faced with that, our collective level of consciousness was not at the level of the problems that we were facing, so we could not make the right decisions by definition. And that is, years later, when I stumbled across that quote.
Okay, you suddenly...
Damn, now I get it.
Now you get it, okay. And now you are offering to companies, not only, first of all, to executives of companies. So it's already the starting point. Yeah, you have CEOs and so on from companies. Can we cite this one here? Is it because it's in your letter, or is it? Okay. Wir schneiden's raus.
Not yet, but as an example. But let me put it this way: the collective level of consciousness of leadership. Yes, we offer it at the executive level, but it's actually for every leader. So who's a leader?
Who's not a leader?
And who is not a leader. Exactly. So when we say we want to democratize this brilliant tool, leaders appear on every single level of any organization. And actually, McKinsey just published a study, I think half a year ago. They said, if you go, Mr. and Mrs. Organization, any transformational process that you're in, be it a digital, cultural crisis, whatever, merger, if you don't have a minimum of 7% of the whole population of your organization, all stakeholders, that includes also not only internal employees, but also the basically your whole value chain, behind you, living that new culture, living that, totally behind you, the failure, the success, the level of success goes down to zero. The probability of success goes down to zero. So you need at least 7%, and you need it on all levels of
7%, 70 or 7?
7% is a minimum number.
This is the number where a culture in an organization, including all stakeholders, starts shifting to another level or to another stage.
It is the minimum level where you have kind of the inner Spartans that are willing to fight off the Persians, to stay in the Greek metaphoric.
Yeah, very good.
Persons representing the complexities, the attacks from competitors,
all the pressures.
The pressures. And you need at least 7%. But how to get there is the question. And to manifest it, you need 20%. And that actually correlates completely with the law of innovation and diffusion, where you need the pioneers, the early adopters, and then there's a chasm of around 10 to 15% that you need to come across.
Sorry, chasm?
Chasm is it's the gap. It's that turning point where a system switches. Like in a market, you conquer a market with your new product idea, etc. But also the internal culture is like conquering a market.
Okay, you know this picture. You know this thing with the magnet. magnetism, a magnetic field, is that all the molecules, all the atoms are in the same direction. And I think there is also a certain level, if it's more than a certain
There's always
percentage.
a tipping point.
There's a tipping point, and suddenly everything switches in the same direction.
Exactly.
How much percent is that there? Do you know it?
Magnetism? Nah.
Yeah, you don't know it. Okay.
That's I didn't study physics.
Okay.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I've heard that. And in any given marketplace, you know that if you just cater to less than 7-8%, you always have, well, you have a nice following, but this will not mean that your company will survive in 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
If you really want to conquer a market, and market also means internally, if you want to change the culture of your organization, which is the same as a new product, and your market is your 1,000, 10,000 employees and other stakeholders, then how do I get to slowly introduce my new idea, my new culture, or the need for a reorganization, or the going from an analog pipeline-driven company to a digital company? I need to get 7% behind. And so going back to your original question, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to a cultural transformation like this, it needs the C-suite, especially the CEO, involved.
Yeah.
Because if the culture is not lived by the collective leadership, the top-level leadership, no one else is going to follow. So that's exactly going back to that quote, is the collective consciousness of the leadership is the starting point.
It's the starting point, yeah. Because otherwise, it's not. It's the same with you know, we at Scale Up work with this 5 dysfunctions of a team pyramid. Pyramid. Okay. Well, I saw already your face expression. So the pyramid and there the base of the pyramid is trust.
Exactly.
And if I work with my teams, I always say trust has to be given by the leader. If the leader doesn't give trust, nobody else can give it into the organization. It doesn't work.
Let me ask you, is trust below the line or above the line?
It's above the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because trust needs what?
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, it needs to be.
Does it need exchange of information?
No, it needs an very open space, and it needs. Oh, that's interesting. It's an interesting point in English, especially. Tell me, what is your idea?
Emotional connection.
Emotional connection. Yeah,
that's
very simple. Yeah.
And yes, of course, it needs information. It needs transparency. If I give everyone the wrong information, okay. But that's a given. But emotional connection, how do I connect emotionally and get alignment? That is not something that you find in the balance sheet.
And normally, if I ask my clients exactly this question, so how do you create trust? What do you need that trust is created or trust is emerging? They very often answer time. And this is what we know. If you have time, if you have years together with somebody in the same office, in the same desk, after a while, you know him very well, and you know that he doesn't bite you, and you know that he doesn't kick you. So you start trusting this person. And I think we are today in a time where we can't afford to wait for years and years until we start trusting each other.
It's a wonderful example about the inefficiency of trust building through the IQ or a normal process only.
Yeah.
Then basically we need to so often exchange information and give advice and see that your advice actually works, my advice actually works. So we start to, woman is knowledgeable. I can trust their advice. But that's only when the sun is shining. We all know that true trust is about when times get tough. And that is where, do I share the same values? Am I emotionally connected? Is the defining question.
Yeah.
And it takes years. It's an inefficient process.
Yeah.
When we put people in a trust circle process and let them connect emotionally, it's guaranteed that after 90 minutes, you feel
higher level of trust.
Not only that, you feel like, oh my God, have I known these people for decades? Not only years, but decades. You feel like that's the same level of trust I have. So people I went to college with.
Already after one session, it's already
half
starting.
A session.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
It's absolutely, it's mind-boggling every single time. Every single time. And then now it goes to the democratization effect. All of a sudden, your position, your achievements, your academic title become absolutely secondary.
Yeah.
It actually goes to one of the aha moments you have, that although we all want to be enough and all loved, all of a sudden we notice that no one on this planet has ever been loved for the amount of PhDs he has, or the amount of money he gets paid by the company.
Again, a very nice German saying, alles Schall und Rauch. I don't think it translates.
That's a great German saying.
Yeah.
Schall und Rauch. But what you truly love for is, can you connect? Can you be empathetic? Can you be aware? Can you be vulnerable? All of a sudden, that feeling of deep empathy, and that's not to be mistaken with erotic love, which unfortunately the word love is put into a very simplistic corner. Also, there's the word eros. When you go back to the Greek original, it means the energy of life, the enthusiasm for one another, the deep connection, the driving fire of everything. That is the level, and that is to create that fire. IQ is
not sufficient.
Not only not sufficient, it's a very limited resource.
Yeah. Maybe even stands in the way of that process on certain moments. So you just said that. So the starting point are the CEOs, and you mentioned another, let's say, nomenclatura before. You talked about the early adapters and so on. So that's like a ladder, or like a kind of different types of stages. Can you? And I think that you need from the CEOs people who are somehow open to this.
Yes.
So how is this?
There's a correlation between that bell curve of the law of innovation and diffusion that allows you to create that change within any given organization of any size, starting, by the way, with your family, and what we call the conscious states of leadership.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why our definition of a leader is not the classic one, meaning what hierarchical position do you have? That's the IQ world. It is what we define as leader, a change maker, paradigm shifter, or people inspirer. And I learned that lesson actually in one of my older companies, former companies, where there was an amazing guy at the reception desk, a former roofer. But he was had an accident, couldn't be on roofs again, because that's a tough profession. But he was not just at our reception desk; he was the soul of the company, the trusted one person. You could literally feel it in the company. It was 100 people, 5 floors, when he was on vacation, and not. It changed the chemistry. And
was he appreciated for that by the top level?
It took me. He was with us for forever, actually, until we sold the company. I think it took me 3 or 4 years to recognize that, because again, I was not at the level of consciousness myself to actually see that. My own lens that I had on basically judging people by was just my IQ-based, KPI-based. Well, I'm paying you for that. Are you here 8 hours a day? Are you doing your job? Yes, no. Yes, good. No, not so good. Until I had the receptors within myself to actually expand my consciousness to say, oh, hold on a second, completely different parameters at work.
Beautiful.
That took a lot of development.
What happened with him?
Oh, he is still in contact every birthday. And I'm literally following him also as a father, because he, although has a fraction of the resources that I always had available, the job he's done as a father, I can only bow to and say, damn, I'm a freaking, even after 3 kids and a an apprentice father at best, and that guy has mastered it.
Wow. Okay.
Because he knows how to connect, deeply connect.
Sounds good. Interesting person, more than interesting.
So it's literally my role model of leadership.
Yeah. There is another acronym you use in your papers. It's ACT. So the one is R, what we had, awareness, responsibility, and empathy. And there's a second one, it's ACT, aliveness, courage, trust. We are so that we may act. Tell me a little bit about ACT.
Yes. So it simply says, walk the talk. So once you have that ability, that grow the R muscle, or what we call the conversation fluency muscle, which is that harmonization of this outer dialogue, the IQ, with the inner dialogue, the EQ. When that is harmonized and synchronized, that muscle grows. And then we're able to access completely different levels of intelligence and thereby find completely different levels of solutions for complexities that before we couldn't. But that cannot stay a theory. That needs to be put into action, or what we call that wisdom needs to be put to action or embodied. Be it in a project, be it in doing something together, bringing it to the world. And the ACT acronym starts with aliveness, because that bringing it to action, that's what makes us feel alive. And that, unfortunately, takes courage. It's easier to say, you know what, now I'm just in my academic little ivory tower. I can write about it and call myself conscious, or I can just meditate in the corner and hover above ground. No. It's, at the end of the day, can we manifest that in the real world? In whatever shape, there's no judgment about the size of volume or whatever success, but just do it. Walk the talk. And it takes courage, and it only works with trust. Hence, aliveness, courage, trust.
Okay, very good. Talking about activity. So the Argonauts is a organization, company, and let's talk a little bit about this journey. I know the journey a little bit because we worked together for now, I think 1.5 years in terms in the context of scale up. So
applying this wonderful methodology, and boy, I'm your apprentice when it comes to that.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about your story. So what is your bold, your hairy, audacious goal with the Argonauts, and how we want to do the next steps?
Now we're back to the billion.
Yeah, we're back to the billion.
So let me take you a little bit back to that, where this number comes from. Because it's not just saying this sounds big and bold and I want to be acknowledged for that. Quite the opposite. No, it just happened it's a story that happened with the project Planet Earth.
The project what?
Planet Earth.
Planet Earth.
Planet Earth. That, okay. And especially when we brought out the movie. The TV series was already a big success globally, and then we brought out the movie. And at the premieres, something special happened. When it came out, people started to be connected in a different way. And over, I think, a period of 10, 12 years, and it still runs. It's still on Netflix, still has reruns. People still watch it.
Still beautiful.
It's supposedly 1.3 billion people all over the planet has seen it, and what
it's
was
impressive.
Well researched is it changed their view in their relation as humans in relation to this planet, nature, themselves, and with one another. So it had this it set an impulse that created a switch in thinking. And I wondered, wow. At the end of the day, yes, we spent an enormous amount of money. Everybody thought at that time we were nuts and we're going to go bankrupt. And we spent 100 times per hour production than was the norm. But now in retrospect, with just the total project cost 50 million. But we reached over 1 billion people with it. changing their view on themselves, life, the world. So it's a fraction of an investment with an unbelievable outcome. And so it is doable. It is doable to reach that many people. And in today's world, in the digital world, you can reach that many people. And that is what we want to reach with the Argonauts, giving and over 1 billion people this magic formula of having a space of psychological trust and safety, and within it, a different conversation.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, maybe let me ask this question. How do you utilize the scale-up framework for achieving your goal?
The first time I've seen it was Vern Harnish actually on stage. I actually wondered, how could I ever believed to ever run any company without that tool set? And I was almost actually ashamed. And what the hell have I been doing? So ever since I've been a fan. And basically we're just following the script. And every time we go off script, we get punished. Then we need to go constantly again. So, we need a new quarterly. Let's fix this.
Okay, thank you. Stefan, maybe let's slowly start closing our beautiful conversation. I found some questions I would like to ask in your own scripts. I love them. They are really beautiful, the questions. And you say that this question match the 4 waves of your journey, what you're providing and with the Argonauts. And the first question is, do you hear the calling? No, the question are to you.
Exactly. Do you hear the calling? It is, every one of us is on a hero's journey. And for those who've heard it before, it's an American philosopher called Joseph Campbell that actually discovered that this is the underlying pattern of all mysteries and fairy tales and great adventure stories. Lord of the Rings is a pure hero's journey. The Bible, the saga of the Nibelungs, it doesn't matter where we go. Every Disney movie is based on that structure. So that is something that is deeply ingrained in the human soul. And the first question when we go on that hero's journey, the first gating item is, do you hear the calling? Are you the hobbit that is in the Shire and they're having fun and the weather is shining and they're having a party and Gandalf comes in and the question comes, are you going to leave this wonderful place to go on a dreadful journey where it's cold and dangerous? Are you ready? Or as in the King Arthur saga, Merlin asked Arthur, are you ready? Are you worthy? If not, well, you can go back and have a party and hope for the best.
And what's about you? Do you hear the calling?
I believe that is the one driving element that actually gets me out of bed in the morning. And hence that big, hairy, audacious goal, as Scale-Up calls it, to reach 1 billion people, but not for the billion number, but with the absolute belief that this is it used to be a secret code, and bring it out of the mystery. It's bring it back to humanity. It's true humanness at work, and it should be not only a set of tools, but a way of thinking, a way of being, that it is so natural that I truly believe that this is a key to unlocking a lot of the misery that we're looking at right now.
Okay, great. The second question, it's together with the second level or how you say, state of, how you call it. Muss der Manu gleich rausschneiden, wenn ich jetzt zu lang blättere. Aber wie hast du das genannt? Da gab es so einen Begriff, den ich wichtig fand. Moment.
Welchen?
Egal. Lass uns weg.
Nee, sag mal, was meintest du?
Ich habe einen Begriff, den fand ich ganz gut. Nicht State of Mind.
Soul, Mindset und Soulset?
Nee, auch nicht. Egal, lassen wir es weg jetzt, sonst wird es zu kompliziert. So the second question is, have you become everything you are here to be?
Oh, after you hear the calling in a hero's journey, that's just 1/4 of the whole way. It still needs to go 360 degrees. So, are you here everything you're here to be? That is are and act. Are you really willing to bring it to action? Are you courageous enough? Am I courageous enough? And when I can answer that with a full yes, and I feel fully alive, then I know I can check off that question with a full-blown yes.
Okay, and do you think you have checked it off already, or you're just in the process of checking it?
In the starting process.
Okay, very good. But you see the goal already. That's good.
There is, let me put it this way, to use Plato's metaphor, I'm not all the time looking at the shadows on the wall anymore. Can turn around and say, hey, there's light, let me see where it's coming from.
Okay, good. The third question on the hero's journey is, are you creating the impact you were born to?
Yes, because it's, are you here, everything that you were born to be is one. It's not about just the me. The impact is about the we. So can you go from the me to the we? Can you become not only a single hero, but a we hero, a group hero, the Argonauts?
Beautiful. And the fourth one, what makes you feel truly alive?
That's actually the summary of all. If you can answer the first three with a yes, automatically you're fully alive.
Okay. That's very good.
The aliveness is that the great German word Lebendigkeit. Interestingly, when I first heard the word aliveness, actually 5 years ago, I think I thought that's not English. That's a Germanic word, but it is a true English word. The feeling of being fully alive and full aliveness, it is the whole process of going the full-blown hero's journey and embracing it, the good, the bad, the ugly, life itself. That is what creates aliveness.
Okay.
It's not a goal.
Okay. It's a state, or fluency. It's not a state. It's a fluent.
It's a fluent up and down, but while being aware of this and embracing it.
And here we are again in the space. That's where that happens in the space. If you're really in the space, it's open to everything.
Precisely.
Right? Yeah, fantastic.
And when you're an organization and are able to create those spaces, it allows you as a company leader to create a meaning-making layer within your company. Because the aliveness, feeling of aliveness, is that is the answer to this constant search of meaning that we humans have. And when that happens, when they allow that in an organization to happen, then individual purpose and company purpose align, and oh boy, there's nothing you cannot achieve as an organization.
Okay.
And the bottom line, the profit is basically a side effect. And that's also, by the way, what Ernst Young actually found out in a long study, that purpose-driven company, which are fully aligned, which have this alignment of individual and company purpose, beat the market by 42% consistently. So it makes even financially. Yeah.
And I experienced how hard it is for the average, let's say, companies to find really the purpose. And I can imagine that your process helps that a lot.
Exactly, because purpose cannot be found through an IQ, KPI-based thinking. Then it becomes basically something you put in the elevator. Here's all 5 core values, yada, yada. No, you're not. Who are you truly? And
let me close with two questions that are more like kind of typical Konstantin questions. The one is, Stefan, what what would you like to know? What is there something where you think, oh gosh, if I would know that one, that would be so great for me?
There is not one to know. It is more, can I develop an ability of higher awareness? That how do I allow myself to choose the state I am?
Okay.
How can I grow that muscle consistently so that at any given moment, taking a blank sheet of paper, drawing a line that I can locate myself wherever I am, and then drive my state of being towards a growth set, in a growth state, not a deficiency state. So that ability is what I would strive for.
Okay, beautiful. And the second and last question for today would be, it's always my end question, is what is your wish? Could be something for you, for humanity, whatever. What's your wish?
That awareness, responsibility, and empathy becomes the new underlying algorithm of our operating system, to use that tech speak in our tech times.
Okay.
But when we know we've all embedded that new conversational ability, connectiveness between humans becomes so much easier and deeper, and thereby solutions to conflicts and problems that we don't know how to solve right now will become literally self-evident.
So you mean the 7% or 8% for the whole world would change maybe the way how humanity is operating together?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is going from this Descartes, I think, therefore I am thinking, mechanistic, rational, IQ-based only, to a what I rephrased as we think and feel in harmony, therefore we are.
Okay.
And
I like the picture. It's more or less the same answer I always give. Also, that I think that I would always call it the paradigm of thinking I'm the one against everybody else. Shift this to we are together in that. I will always, for example, the picture of, imagine you're in a traffic jam, a big one, on the Autobahn, the one which is 40 kilometers long, and you would know, okay, this will be now at least 2 to 3 hours. And imagine everybody, each individual in his own car, at the moment thinks me against all these stupid assholes here. And if you think, imagine he would shift and everybody would shift to we together. How do we go together through this here? I would bet on that we won't have not one single traffic jam anymore in Germany or wherever.
that's true. Because if you're in sync, coherent with one another, it by definition cannot jam.
Yeah. So it's maybe like your orchestra picture. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially in an orchestra, everyone who's also an amateur in the audience hears it, feels it in a very millisecond. Someone goes out of line.
Immediately. Yeah.
It's for me always the best metaphor to understand what true synchronicity, coherence, collaboration, awareness actually can feel and sound like.
We had last time this picture of Barenboim with the West Eastern Divan Orchestra,
That's a great
this documentation, and this movie, and this moment when he first time met these beautiful people in Palestine, and they made music, but it was not really coherent. And then he said, "Okay, come on, guys, let me help you a little bit." And then this change after a few weeks of working together, and there was suddenly this coherence. It was so beautiful. They did.
It is a beautiful real-life story of the original Argonaut myth. You have one Jason, Daniel Barenboim, that collects individually great musicians, heroes, and just reconfigures them, gives them a different space. The Argo ship metaphorically. In his case, this amazing orchestra that he has with this wonderful building that was then built for it.
Yeah.
And that outcome happens.
Yeah. Okay, great, Stefan. I think it was a fantastic conversation. I think it was good that we repeated it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we had a dress rehearsal now.
Yeah. No, but I think it was really nice. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's see what's going to happen in the future. I'm very excited of what's going on and what news we will get from you. Yeah.
We'll see in the next quarter. Scale up quarterly.
Yeah,
Quarterly.
sure, yeah, that's true.
Right.
Okay, and you at home, have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.